Begin the card Daf Mesechta Kesuvos Daf Ayin Beis. Begin on the bottom line of Ayin Alpha Beis. The Gemara continues halacha of a previous Mishnah, which was the same word as the opening Mishnah, the title of the parak of a mother. Someone takes a vow prohibiting his wife from certain things regarding what the halacha is going to be. Shares corresponds to Kazakh and Chazkel to enter the Daf Chaim Hashem doing today's Daf. Some of this is discussed in today's Daf are so a guy takes a neder against his wife. He says, "That's it. I don't let you go to shiva houses anymore." How can we not mention Yankee Maya? Masaskin, on the base of Mishnah, or you can't go anymore. Chasnas, every night you have enough chasna. What the halacha is. Regarding if a husband compels his wife to perform degrading tasks, what the halacha is. It's regarding if she violates the biblical law, or is if she violates the common Jewish custom. The Torah says that a woman's privileged to appear publicly, privileged to have her hair uncovered. And what the halacha is regarding a man who gave kedushin b'tanai in many different cases. So we begin the current Daf Ayin Alpha Beis, the bottom line on the Amid. The Mishnah said, "Hamadras ishtay b'chulu." If someone take a vow against his wife, either she shouldn't go to the base of Avil, to a house of mourning, or the base of Mishnah, or to a wedding, to a house of festivity. So then we said the halacha is yoytzi v'yitin kesubah. He has to go out and give her a kesubah, he has to divorce her and pay her kesubah. Mishnah don't above them because he's locking the door in front of her. So the Gemara wonders, Bishlam, the base of Mishnah, I understand you don't let him go to chasnas, no more simchas. As a getint up of Ayin Beis and Alv. I understand ikonob of now that you're locking the door in front of her, meaning the door of joy and of people have hard lives, and you go to the wedding, get all dressed up, you put on your makeup, and you have a good time, and you schmooze, and you meet girls and friends and whatever. So I can understand what door you're locking in front of her. And lebesa avil, but you tell me you can't go to a shiva house. My nob of what type of door you're locking in front of her? What I mean, this is not a place where people go to get happy and to get joy. So what type of door are you locking? Says the Gemara, the Brisa, what's going to happen is, what door you're closing in front of her is that Lamacher, tomorrow, like when kids say tomorrow or yesterday, it means a future time. Lamacher Yimesa, the next day she's going to die. Then call Betty Saifta. No one's going to eulogize her. When did she ever come and participate in someone else's Levaya? Vigidami, those who say, the gear says, in kol Betty Saifna, not Saifda, but with a nun. There's no one who's going to bury her. Safan means Tomon, like buried. Just like she didn't do chesed with others, no one's going to do with her, so you're locking the door of people taking care of her when she passed away. So too, talking in the Brisa, continue on this theme, May used to say, "My desib." What does it mean the pasuk in Kehelis? Toiv leches al beis avol. Better to go to the house of mourning, leches al beis mishnah, than to go to the house of festivity. Because this is the end of every single man. And the living should put this to heart. So he used to explain, what should the living give to heart? So usually the simple translation is, there's death, there's nothing to escape. You should pay attention to this. That's why it's better to go to the house of mourning. You realize your mortality. But he says, no, the living should pay attention to Devarim Shal Misa, to the entities, the words of death, meaning, what does he mean to say? The safad, if you eulogize others, then you should pay attention that yespadune, that they're going to eulogize him. So therefore, he shouldn't be bothered so much if the levai is taking a little bit too long and the maspid is going on a little bit too long. Don't worry, they're going to do the same for you. The kavar, if you're burying others, yikpadune, they're going to bury him. The idol, if he's lifting up his voice and crying and eulogy, yitlune, they're going to lift up their voice and crying over you. The Levi, if he's escorting the coffin from the house of mourning to the grave, which it takes a long time until the cars come, until you line up, okay, whoever wants to come, this and that, until we get there. Don't worry, you'll have also people escort you. The Ta'an, if you're going to carry the coffin, they're going to carry him. So that's what the mayor says. You should pay attention. That's related to the teaching we just said before, that if you don't let her go to the house of Shiva, you're locking the door in front of her. No one's going to be there for her when she's passing away. Don't worry, you pay attention that if you're going to do all this by the Levi of someone else, they'll do the same thing for you, and there's no greater covenant acherin than that. Now, it said in the Mishnah that if he says no more shiva calls for you, no more chasnas, he has to divorce and give it the kesubah. But the Mishnah said, if he had a claim because of something else, he's saying for that reason, that's his reason. Rashai, then he's permitted to stop her from going to the simchas. My davach. What's this other thing that he had? He's allowed to stop her. So the Mishmol says, says, you go to that wedding is people that are immoral, people that are inappropriate. So if that's his reason that he doesn't let her go, so that would allow him to do that. But Rashi says, we didn't say this only if it's been established and there's a pattern and we know this to be the case. But if it has not been established, you cannot be one of these fanatics who say, well, I don't know, at a wedding, who knows what's going on over there? That is not allowed to, then you would have to go ahead and again give it a ksuba. That's not a good enough excuse. But if there's a real legitimate concern for inappropriateness and lewdness at the weddings, so then you could stop her from going. Now I said in the Mishnah that if he tells her, Amanas Chatoimdi, on the condition that you say to that person what I told you, or what you told me, or that you should fill up and empty out into the garbage. So we said all these things is degrading the woman. So you have to go out and divorce and give her the ksuba. So why? B'taimer, let her say. What's the problem? Why can't she tell that person what he told her or what she told him? So maybe the Mishnah says, no, I'm talking about an embarrassing incident. She tells him, her husband, that something very, very embarrassing happened. He says, go tell that person. That's inappropriate. Again, if the husband's demanding these type of things, then you got to divorce her and give her the ksuba. One of the last cases was or that you tell her to fill up and empty it into the garbage. Someone says, let her do what she can't. She can't fill up whatever it is that he's asking her to do and empty it into the garbage. So Rabbi Shmuel, he says, no, this actually is a metaphor. After intimacy, he's asking her that shetemali, she should fill up her womb with semen, v'noifetes, and she should run with her legs and cause it to drip out, that it should not conceive and become pregnant. That's what it means. Fill up and empty it out into the garbage. That's what he's telling her. That's one version. I think this on the Bryce was taught a different shot. It means shetemali asari kadiman. You tell her to fill up 10 buckets of water, but try to and spill it into the garbage. So the Gemara says, wait a second. There was two pshatim we said. Bishlam the Shmuel, you understand according to Shmuel's pshat that it means filling up the uterus and emptying it out with the zera. I can understand why you say that. Okay, your husband, you're crazy. You got to divorce her and you got to give her the ksuba. But according to the interpretation of the Brisa, what does it bother her? Tell her, let her do that. Let her fill up the buckets and empty it out. So Rabbi Yochanan says, she looks like a fool, she looks like a retard. But she's filling up, spilling out. No, that's not. It's not appropriate to do that, to cause the woman to feel like she's mentally deranged, and therefore that would cause him to have to give her the ksuba and divorce her. Similarly, Rav Kahana says, "Hamadir es ishtoi." If someone takes a vow against his wife, shlei tishal, that she shouldn't borrow, v'shlei tashal, that she shouldn't lend, not enough a fine sieve or a kvara, a coarse sieve, v'rechaim, a mill, v'taner, and the oven, which that's a movable oven, that she's not letting her lend or borrow these things. Yetziv eating ksuba. So he has to go out and give her the ksuba. Why? He's giving her a bad name in the neighbors that, she nothing. You can't borrow from her, she won't borrow from you. So that's something it's cause for divorce, for giving her the ksuba. Similar in the Brisa, the same idea. Hamadas is if someone takes a vow against his wife, shlei tishal v'shlei tashal, that she won't borrow, neither that she should not allow to lend. Enough of a fine sieve or coarse sieve, or rechaim, a tanner, a mill, or an oven. So yetziv eating ksuba. So he has to go ahead and force him to divorce her and give her the ksuba. And what Taisus discusses, how could he take such a vow? It just means when she has it, that he's not going to let her have enough from it. But and he has to go and give her the ksuba. Because the same reason that we said, because he's causing him to have a bad name in the neighborhood. Now, the same thing is the other way around. If she takes a vow, that she's not going to borrow and she's not going to lend, fine or coarse sieve, oven, or she's not going to weave nice clothing for his sons, so he can divorce her without a ksuba. She's giving the husband a bad name in the neighborhood. What? Look what type of wife he has. That she's off a rocker. That she doesn't. She's totally like social misfit or whatever, this and that. So it gives him a bad name that this is what his wife is doing. That this family, don't go near them. They won't borrow anything from you. They won't lend you anything, right? Or that his wife is not weaving any nice clothing for his kids, so they're walking around like schleppers. So again, that could force him to do. He could force to divorce her without ksuba. Now, continuing the halacha of the next Mishnah, continue on this theme about leaving the marriage. This time now without ksuba. We were saying in previous cases that he has to go out and to be eaten ksuba. Now we're saying the illigates is shleib ksuba. The following cases are where she leaves without ksuba. If the woman violates biblical law, Yehudis, or it's a Jewish custom that's how the Yiddish techte, that's how the Jewish daughters are, even though it's not written that there's such a law. Now it says the Mishnah, what's considered the law of Moshe, meaning biblical law, meaning related to his marriage with her, is machilas she'ein mu'aser. If she gives him to eat food that's not tight, again, if she's not keeping, it sounds like in the case of the Mishnah, there's not any case that she's not keeping law. It's the law that's related to him, that it's biblical law where she's causing him to stumble. Those are things that he has rights to divorce her without ksuba. So if she's having intimacy with him as a menstruating woman, she doesn't separate challah for him, so she gives him untied challah. So she takes a vow and she doesn't fulfill it. As we'll see in the Gemara that relates to him. Now, Bezir Das Yehudis, what's considered Das Yehudis regarding the Jewish custom? She goes out into the street with her hair uncovered. She spins thread in the marketplace, which Gemara is explaining exactly what's so problematic about that. She speaks with every single person. He says, even if she curses his parents in front of him. He says, is also a woman who is very loud. She makes a lot of noise. What's exactly a loud woman? It's the Kashima Deberes, but basically when she's speaking in her house, you're going to explain exactly what is she speaking about. But and her neighbors hear, and obviously we're not talking about a bungalow economy with the paper thin walls that you have or a townhouse or whatever, but we're talking about that she's pretty loud, and the neighbors hear her. That's a kalanis, and that's cause for divorce without ksuba. Now the Gemara goes through explaining all these cases, starting off with Das Moshe. What's biblical law that you could divorce her without ksuba? Is we said if she gives him to eat without taking off ma'isa first. So the Gemara says, hey Chadam, what's the case about that she's feeding him this food? If he knows this when he's eating, that his wife is not taking off ma'isa, so why the reason for divorce? Nifresh, let him separate and not eat it in an untied state, meaning separate from eating it. If he doesn't know, so how does he know? Meaning, who told him afterwards that he's coming to divorce without ksuba? So the case talking about the Amrle, she told him, Plainly kain tikkun liyasakri. Sounds like the story that we had recently in the community, right? You have someone else. He's saying, some person a kain, he fixed my kri. He gave the hashkafa. But also shaila, and he goes and asks him, v'shtakech shikr. It comes as a lie. That never happened. It wasn't like that. So that's how you end up finding out about it, and therefore that's reason for divorce without ksuba. Similarly, the Gemara goes through all these cases showing the same idea. So when she has tashmish with him, she's a nida. Doesn't go to mikvah, she's a nida. So what's the case? But if he knows that she's refusing, I don't go to mikvah, this and that, so nefresh, so separate from her. And you're not causing any sin. If he doesn't know that she didn't go to mikvah, she goes away, she comes back a few hours later, all pampered, this and that, he thinks she went to the mikvah, she went to the spa, whatever. So how do you know it? You don't know, so you should rely on her. Where do we know that a menstruating woman, that she counts for herself? Because it says the pasuk in Yikra, it says she counts for her 7 days, which la for her means la'atma, for herself. Which Trace actually asks an interesting question: why did you make bracha on like svira sa'ima? Why did you count svira? The 7 days, shivin nikim, the woman should be counting svira. So he says no, you can only count when there's a definite count that you know you're going to get to the end. But a woman who's counting, you don't know if she's going to make it to the end. She might become down, might get a stand, come to the rub. It says you got to start over again, so you can't make a bracha. But maybe as an A, so you should rely on her. So if you know it's December, you don't know, then you have to rely on her. So what is this case that you know that she's causing him to stumble? So she told him, Says, oh, remember that Mara that I had? Oh, I took it to that Chacham, and he said it's okay. So therefore I went. Vazo Shaile, he goes and he asks the Rav, Taka, you? He said, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I never met your wife. She's lying. So therefore, that's how he knows that his wife is causing him to stumble to sin with a nida, and therefore that's again reasons for divorce without exuma. Only by some another approach you could say is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, a woman that's been presumed to be a nida in the neighborhood. Now, how's that the case? We would never do this today, but in Talmudic times, the woman would have, as we mentioned previously in this Masechta, that the worn out garments she would wear in her nida days. And because she didn't want to wear the same garments when she's in nida as she is when she's not, because it's repulsive to the husband. Now, to her husband, she says, I'm tar. But the neighbors, the women they're walking around with, they see them during the daytime, the husband's only coming later at night, she has tashmish the husband, the neighbors saw that she was wearing her nida garments. The husband gets lashes because of a nida, meaning if they warned him. So meaning, similarly in the case of our Mishnah, where after tashmish, they let him know, say, what do you mean? Why'd you go home? Oh, because the wife. What do you mean? We saw her today. She was walking around with those nida garments, right? So what's going on there? So he realizes then, retroactively, that she's causing him to stumble. That's how he knows about it. Similarly, the next case, we said, well, she's not separating challah when she's giving him Friday night eating the delicious challah. She doesn't take off. I don't do this bizarre practice of taking off a little dough. So the Gemara says, Idi Adabi knows nifresh. So don't eat that challah. And either David doesn't know the other. How does he know to say that now I can divorce you without a ksuba? So again, they all have a similar theme. Is the Amalei, she tells him, play ni gabel tikkun le'seisa. That person, that the one who needs the doughs, that baker, he took off. I mean, he fixed me the dough. He goes and he asks him. He says, "Wow, you do this to people?" She's lying. And your wife never came to me with no dough. So again, that's how he ends up finding out about it, and that's why it's causes for divorce without a ksuba. Now, the last case was when the dead was in Mekayemis. She takes a vow and she doesn't fulfill it, so that's the reason for divorce. Now, what does it have to do with the husband? It's not her own private sin. That's what we're talking about. That Das Moshe is reason for divorce, because the master says, "Well, the sin of vows. If a person is taking vows and not fulfilling them, bana mason, people's children die." Somebody says, "Pasuk Kehelis." Pasuk says, "Al titin es picho." Don't put your mouth lachti es pesarcha to cause problems for your flesh, to sin with your flesh, etc. Because the pasuk there ends, and don't say in front of the malach because it was a mistake. Why is God getting angry on your voice and destroying? The words are he's destroying your handiwork. So explains the Gemara, what's a person's handiwork? Your finest art, your handiwork, your greatest accomplishment in life is your sons and your daughters. And therefore you see that's chibul. The pasuk says that if you're taking the dharma, it's destroying your handiwork, and therefore the husband can say, I can't be married to such a woman if his children are going to die. Nachman Mahachi brings a different source of the pasuk in Yirmiyah. The pasuk says, La shavi kisis benechem. So the simple translation is, for nothing that I hit your sons, because you guys are not taking the lesson anyway. But it says the Gemara, no, La shav means al iske shav. We know there's something called shvur shav. When you take a vow in vain, meaning if you have a neder that you're not fulfilling, so it's lashav on the shvur shav is why I hit your sons, and therefore their children die, and therefore that's why he could divorce his wife without a ksuba, because she's taking a neder and she's not fulfilling it. Now, relating to the topic of our Mishnah, so regarding this halacha of its reason for divorce without a ksuba, time looking at Bryson. Yomei said, whoever knows regarding his wife, that she takes a vow and she doesn't fulfill it. So no problem. What you should do is yachzubi derena. Not like our Mishnah that you divorce her like suba. Go ahead and make her take a neder again. The yachzubi derena actually sounds like that he should make a neder on her. So she who took a vow that I'm not going to have this thing, he should say, yes, I'm taking a vow on you that you're not having any more kind bars. That's it. No more taking a vow. So she took a vow, and he's afraid that she's not going to fulfill it, because she's not fulfilling it. So he didn't take a vow, but mom was like, what's he fixing by doing that? She's already took the vow, and she's been sneaking kind bars every night. So what are you gaining by making a vow on her? He says, no, what he meant was, what you should do is, he should go ahead, he should provoke her. He should say, yeah, you're not so, you're pretty skinny anyway, whatever this and that. So she's going to get upset. She should say, no, I swear, no more, I'm not having any more of the kind bars. Then the yafrala. and then he could go ahead and nullify the vow. Which Taisus discusses, it sounds like that if he wouldn't, so he wouldn't be able to be made for it, because if he doesn't know about it, when he finds out about it. But it sounds like he wants to get in a situation where he could hear it, and then he could nullify the vow. So then, or he can nullify all vows, Al Kaponim, but the idea is saying that you cannot divorce her because there's a remedy. Simply, you can't because she's taking vows and she's not fulfilling them, so the children will die. But no problem. You have a way of remedying, is just provoke her, she'll make the net in front of you, and then you'll be made for them. On that Amalei, they said to him, no.
How's that going to help the previous net?
What?
How's that going to help the previous net? The first net is actually.
Right, because that is the net there, it sounds like. Yeah, that's what Taisus says, that's what Taisus is discussing regarding if the Yom Shamai, that similarly if you heard for the first time, so that should be enough. So why do you need a matzot laknita? So saying, El Mai Benam Shekvar Nadja, V'lo Shama. Maybe she didn't take another maybe she's going to. It tastes basically on that you're right. For the old one that you hear about it, then you could be made for. But what's with the new ones? You're not going to know about it. No problem. Do it in front of her, provoke her. She'll make a nether, and then you'll nullify it. So it sounds like that is for the future ones. But upon them, it's like a way of making sure that you're going to get her whatever she's upset about. You're going to get it in front of you, and then you'll be able to make the nether. They said to him, no, that's not a good option. Why not? Because you can't live with a snake in a box. Meaning, if you're not careful, he's going to bite you. So you're also that it's going to end up being problems. Yes, you could find a way. This is too hard. If she's always making the dough, and to every time be on top of it and be proactive and get her upset and be there to try to make a mefenet is too hard. A similar type of a case. Tanya Litton of Rice, he said, anyone knows regarding his wife, that she this is her thing. She doesn't want to, when she makes dough, she doesn't take off challah. No problem. Every time she makes the dough, she walks away for a moment, you quickly siphon off a little piece, wrap it in that silver foil, no problem, separate challah. And therefore there's not reasons for divorce without a ksuba. On that Amalei Heros, they said to him, no. You can't live with a snake in one box. So the Gemara explains, Man the Masin Laha, the one that taught this teaching of Rabbi Yehuda, that said that there's a remedy for challah, for sure would say it on the case of the dam, because the dam is not so common. Challah is you're making all the time. So if you're saying on challah it's a remedy, for sure it's a remedy on the dam. But the one who's teaching it on the darim, regarding challah, he wouldn't say that. Because zimna the mikvah, at times it could happen that you weren't on top of it, you're not always in the kitchen. There's some women, they kick the men out of the kitchen, and you have to sneak in there, whatever. It's not such an easy thing. And you might miss one. And you can be sitting down, eating a Danish, and you're like, wait a second, when did you make this? And that's it, you will over Isser. So even that man Dama who's saying that there's a way of remedy, he only says it on the case of the Dam, but he wouldn't say it on the case of Chal. Those are all Das Moshe. This is what we say, Das Moshe, Yisrael, we say this by a Kedushin, that's biblical law. Then there's something called the Mishnah said also Badas Yehudis is the reason for divorce for Ksuba.
But the Gemara mentioned Das Moshe only things that has to do with
Yeah.
What about things? Let's say she's not,
right.
She doesn't keep Shabbos
right.
for herself.
Right. Sounds like that's not a reason. Right.
Not a reason to divorce.
Right. Why should that be a reason?
Do we have a problem here?
Here it's causing him. So therefore it's you're.
So the Das Yehudis is also maybe not. This is we're going to Korea. What does that do with that?
Right, so this sounds like these are public, these are
so that's the
yeah, I'm saying, but it's more that it sounds like that this is more like about the status, about how the appearance of the family and how it affects him. So the Mishnah says, "V'zeh das Yehudis." What is the Jewish customs that would be reasons for divorce? It says, if she goes out with her hair uncovered. When I said hair uncovered, the Raisi, that's biblical. Why don't you call it Das Moshe? Because the Chassidus says the pasuk by Midbar says the regarding the Saita, the pasuk says that part of the procedure of the Saita is that you uncover the head of the woman, which Tan Bishmal was torn the breast of Bishmal. This is telling you that there's azhara, a prohibition of the nice over the Jewish women. They shouldn't be going out with their hair uncovered. What's that rayas? Rashi brings two interpretations. Either because from the fact that how are they disgracing the suspected adulterous woman is by uncovering her hair, Mida Keneged Mida, like she did to beautify her paramour, her person that she was having an affair with. So obviously it's forbidden, because that's how they're disgracing her. Or the fact that it says upara. What do you mean para? What are you uncovering? Obviously the Torah is telling you that it was covered. Obviously that is not the custom for the Jewish girls to go out with their hair uncovered. That's the pshat Rashi likes. So you see that biblical. The Torah already mentions this, that it's prohibited to have the hair uncovered. Says the Gemara, no. The Raisa, according to biblical laws, Getindim Advez, Kalsa, if she has a basket, which the Tropicana lady is the only one that I know that used to have this basket, but it has like a receptacle that you could fit it on your head, and it has a receptacle on the top, so that you could put all your bowl of wool and linen and all the different things that you need to have, and it fits on the head. So according to biblical law, Shabbat dummy, that's okay, that's good enough. But that's Yehudis, or according to the Jewish custom, that's what called Nami Asa. Even that hat is also forbidden. It's not good enough. You have to have all of your hair covered. So I'm going to continue on this theme. So again, so that's the case of Das Yehudis. You're right. Biblical law, you're not allowed to have your hair uncovered. But how much? According to rabbinic, according to the Jewish custom, is all the way. So Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, he says, Kalsa, if a woman is wearing this hat, it doesn't have a problem about having your hair uncovered. That was the statement Rabbi Yochanan said. So Habib B'Zera wondered on this teaching of Rabbi Asi. He says, well, Heicha, where is the woman that you tell me it's not a problem if she has, she's wearing the Tropicana hat? If it's in the marketplace, what do you mean? Das Yehudis, you just told me that according to Jewish custom, that's not good enough. So that can't be, that's not a problem. What do you tell me? In a courtyard? If that's the case, they tell me in the courtyard there's a problem about having your hair uncovered. That you're telling me it's enough to wear that hat. If that's the case, so you didn't leave anything for the daughters of Avram Avinu, that could be with their husband, because you tell me that even in their own courtyard, that she has to be wearing a head covering, so you don't leave her any space. So Amabaye, Rav Kahana, no, that we're talking about we're going from one courtyard to another courtyard through a public alleyway where there's not so many people. That's where you're not in your own courtyard. Yes, in your own yard, you don't have to have your head covered. But you're walking to another courtyard, to your neighbor, and you're walking through the public the mavoi. So that's where we're saying it's enough. In the shok, you're right. Then you have to have the bulletproof head covering. And that has to cover everything for the Das Yehudis. But for when are we saying that if you're wearing this kulsa, it's enough, that's you're going from chatzar to chatzar through a mavi. And your own chatzar, you don't have to have any head covering. Now the Mishnah said, b'tava b'shuk. Another thing that's Das Yehudis, that's not Jewish custom, and therefore it's reason for divorce, is if she's spinning thread in the marketplace. What's the problem with spinning thread? So Rabbi Shloimy says, b'mara zelo yisel b'nei adam. Talking about where she's showing her arms to people when she's moving her hands all around, spinning thread. So therefore, that's not considered appropriate behavior, and that's reason for divorce. Rav Chizam, he says it's betava. She's spinning v'rad keneged paneha. Rashi translates that to mean that she's spinning on her lap with her palms, and the thread is running down opposite her lower region. So that thread running down over there is inappropriate type of behavior. Today's brings from Hananel is that she's spinning, and there's a red thread which shines on her face. So the red thread is giving like a shine to her face. Again, that's like brazenness, it's pretzis, and therefore if a woman is doing these types of behaviors, that's reason for divorce without a ksuba. Another one of the Das Yehudis was she speaks with everyone. She's chattering with every single guy who walks by. That's reason for divorce without a ksuba. Now, Amar Rabbi Shmuel says it means b'mesachekes and bachrim. It means to say the young men, she's just laughing with them and schmoozing with them. That's inappropriate behavior, and it's reason for divorce without a ksuba. Now the Gemara brings a story related to this that Amar Rabbi B'chana says Zimachada one time I was walking behind her bukva, and chazite lahi arviya. So he says I saw this Arabian woman. The Ahava Yasva, she was sitting, Kashadya pilcha v'kavah. So she was throwing her ball of thread and she was spinning. V'rod keneged paneha, and she had this thread that was going, rolling down her lap, down her leg, down by the lower region. Now, kiven nechazesina. Once she saw us, so pesikte lepilcha. So she cut off from the ball of thread, the thread, and shadise, and she threw it. And Amrli, she said to me, Ulem, young man, havli pelach. Do me a favor, please give me my spindle, give me my thread. So Amam Bar, Rav Ukva, Milsa Rav Ukva, he was walking behind Rav Ukva. Rav Ukva said something, like he mumbled something under his breath. But what did he say regarding the woman? He says, he says, she's spinning in the marketplace. Meaning that was the inappropriate behavior, as we said, because it's Rad Keneged Paneha. The rabbi said, no, he said, he said regarding her, she speaks with every single person, like she has the excuse to find reason to strike up a conversation. So either one of those were inappropriate behaviors, and if a Jewish woman would do that, there would be reason to divorce her. Now, we said in the Mishnah that Rabbi Shloimy, he says, even if the woman curses the one who gave birth to him in front of him, meaning she's cursing out his parents to his face, that's also reason to divorce her without a ksuba. Now, Amar Rabbi Shmuel, he actually takes this one step further. He qualifies and he says, it's b'mekalelas yoldov b'fnei moldov. Meaning to say that when we're saying in the Mishnah that she curses who gave birth to him in front of him, it doesn't even mean literally in front of him. It means even if she curses her husband's father in front of her husband's kids. So she's telling the grandkids about how crazy granddaddy is. And the mnemonic to remember this teaching is Ephraim and Menashe, Keruvim, Hashem, and Yili. Which, again, Ephraim and Menashe, this pasuk is a simon for our Mishnah to remember that when the Mishnah says in front of him, it doesn't mean literally in front of him, it means in front of his sons, as if it's in front of him. As Ephraim and Menashe were not his grandsons, but they were like his sons, so it's saying that it's like in front of him. Now, Amar Rabba says that he's coming to explain this teaching of Rabbi Huda. He says that, for example, the Amrle, she says to him, Nichle Arya Lasaba. Let a lion eat up grandpa, her father-in-law, Bapit pray in front of his son, meaning in front of the son of her husband. She's saying this. So, a very bizarre Talmudic thing that the women would say, but like something about the grandfather in front of the grandkids, that's also enough reasons for divorce. It's not even in front of him, even in front of his kids. Now, the Mishnah said, Tarfin Aimer, he said another case, he says, Ava Kalanas, also a woman that makes a lot of noise. He says, my Kalanas. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mashmul, he says, B'mashmes Koila al Iski Tashmish. So it's that when she's talking with her husband regarding the last time we were together intimately, she's fighting with him, and the neighbors are hearing. And he's embarrassed. He's like, the neighbors are hearing. He says, I don't care. When's the last time you came home and you spent time with me? Okay, that's reasons for divorce without a ksuba. Now, Mastidaton in the Brisa was taught, B'meshameshes b'chatzazu. It's talking about actually when she has intimacy with him in this courtyard, V'nishma koila b'chatza acheres. And they hear her voice in another courtyard. So Rashi explains that to mean that intimacy is very painful for her. So she's screaming, she's making a lot of noises. And this is something that definitely would be disconcerting if they're having intimacy and the neighbors are hearing what's going on. So that's reasons for divorce without a kesuba. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, there's a whole list at the end of the parak of blemishes that a woman has. It's reasons for divorce without a kesuba. If you're telling me that the case of Kalanis was that she's in so much pain, and that's probably why Rashi said it, that she's making noise for that reason, not for what people might think other reasons, is because it's a blemish, and it's hurting her, and she makes a lot of noise, so that would be a blemish. So the Gemara says, you're right, it's clear, it must be like the other pshat we said, because if it was the way you're saying Kalanis because it hurts her so much and she makes so much noise that the neighbors hear it, that would be considered as a blemish, and we would have said in that list, obviously it's not what Kalanis is, and that's not included in the halacha of divorcing her without a ksuba. Now we continue in the halacha, the next Mishnah, continuing this theme regarding a woman, we were speaking up until now of Hamada, when he takes a vow against her, Now we talk about her taking vows, and as it relates to the marriage. If someone gets engaged to a woman, on the condition that there's no vows, especially it seems that maybe in Talmudic time, maybe there was more people took more vows, he doesn't want to have a woman with any vows in her. But turns out that, I guess he wants to take vows with her. And you find that she has vows, okay, so she's not engaged because this is not what he wanted. Now, Kansastan, let's say when he gets married, he does it without saying anything, which the Gemara is going to explain. Is this going on the Reisha? On the case of when he had done the Kedushin with the Tanai? But when they got to the Chasna, 12 months later, then he didn't say anything? And then we're going to say this halacha? Or is it its own independent thing, nothing to do with Kitchal Tanai? That the Gemara will explain. But Al Kaponim, when he got married, without saying anything, and you find that she has vows, he's married to her, but he can divorce her without Ksuba. Now, continuing on, let's say he gets engaged to her on the condition that she doesn't have any blemishes. So that she has blemishes. He's like, that was the one thing I said. I didn't want to have a woman that has this wart on her toe. And she has the wart. So in Mukadeshes, so she's not going to be engaged. Now, Konsistam Nitzba woman. Here also it doesn't say what is going on, but if he gets married without saying anything, it turns out she has blemishes. Again, he is married. It's not considered that like they weren't married, but he can divorce her without a ksuba. The Mishnah concludes, all blemishes that invalidate kahanim, which mentioned Mesechus B'chayris, the whole list of things that are blemishes of kahanim, are placed in Menashim, they're invalidations for any woman that you marry. If she has the sunken nose, or all these different things that are blemishes of kahanim, that's cause for an invalidation of considered blemish to divorce a woman. Now, we learned in the Mishnah, the Gemara asks, the same exact Mishnah we have over here is taught in Mesechus Kedushin Parakesh Mekadosh. So the question is, why did Rebbe say the same Mishnah two times, one in our Mesechus and Ksubas and one in the Mishnah Mesechus Kedushin? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you. Over here in our sugya, we're talking about Mesechus Ksubas. So Ksubas is Tzuglei. The reason why we needed it was because we're talking about Ksubas, like the Sefer says, that Teitzish Levi Ksuba. That when he's Kansas dam, yes, you're married, but you can divorce her without a Ksuba. Now, Tani Kedushin, we learned the first part of our Mishnah that she's not engaged to Ksubas only because we wanted to mention the Sefer of saying what's her halacha regarding a Ksuba. Hasam Kedushin is there. The primary thing we needed was regarding is she engaged or not. So Tani Ksuba, so the Kedushin, they told the halacha Ksuba because the Kedushin. So again, each one really was primarily for its own. We only mentioned the other one once we were mentioning. Now, explain the halacha in the Mishnah. Amr B'Yechim Mishur Mishumi, it's something he qualifies, and he says, "Be'elu nedarim amru." Which nedarim did we say in the Mishnah that they're not going to be considered kedushin if it turns out that she has nedarim? Is only shalitechal basar. Let's say she had a vow that she's not going to eat any meat. So that's inu nefesh. That's something that afflicts a person's soul, and it's disgrace to the husband. That over shalitish yayin, she's not going to drink wine. Over shalitish kashem big tzavainim, she's not going to wear colorful garments. So how are we ever going to take vacation? Like, no meat, no wine, no colorful clothing. Where's the wine T-shirt? Nah, forget it. That's a cause for not being a marriage. Similar to the Brisa. Regarding these vows, they said that they're afflicting the soul, which is the reason that a husband is allowed to be made for neder if she's not going to eat meat, she's not going to drink wine, she's not going to wear colorful garments. Now, the problem the Gemara asks on this explanation, you're qualifying the halacha of the Mishnah, that what's the cases of nedarim that is reason for divorce are nedarim that have these inu nefesh. So how about Papa asks, he says, wait a second, when you're saying this qualification that these are the nedarim that we said, what case are you talking about? If it's going on the ratio where he made a stipulation with her on the condition that you don't have nedarim, even the kokapit, but once he's particular about nedarim, I feel called milinami. And ending that there, why is saying specifically these nedarim? Oh, says the Gemara, Ela Sefer, must be going on the Sefer. And as Rashi explains that he holds that the Sefer, the Mishnah, was his own independent teaching. It's not going on the case of Kitchal tonight. It's going when he did Kedushin Stam and Nisuin Stam. And that's the same. When you do it Stam without specifying, and you turns out she has nedarim, so it's going to be considered to be married. But this that we say that he could divorce her without a ksuba are specifically that she has nedarim of inu nefesh, of like not eating meat, not drinking wine, and not wearing colorful garments. A different approach of Rashi, it says no, it even could be talking about the ratio. We did the copy by inchi, but some of the people are particular about have a kapeda. His particularity is going to be considered as a valid kapeda, which are only by things that are in the nefesh. Me did the copy by inchi, things that people are not particular about. Lo have a kapeda, not kapeda. What does that mean? So Tais explains. Tais says we're talking about where he stipulates without specifying. He says, we're getting engaged on the condition that you don't have nedar, but he didn't say which neder. That's where Rav Ashi is saying, okay, if people are not usually particular, even though he's saying he is, it's not going to be considered kapeda. But if he explicitly says, on the condition that she does not have this neder, most definitely, of course, he can stipulate with any nedarim, even these that people are not particular. But again, if he didn't, that's the case where we're saying it has to be specifically these types of nidra in the nefesh to be considered a problem for finding the gem. Thank you, anything.